What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Savvy, and welcome back to the Savvy Show. And today, man, I think we got a really juicy one, man. I'm not even capping. This will be the first ever versus battle on the channel. Yo, and it's not just any other it's not like random SCPs. It has one of my favorite SCPs in the battle. Bruh, it's Cain versus Abel. And if you guys already didn't know, I really liked Abel's design and like his abilities and what he was like standing for, and just like his personality as SCP when we did the breakdown on his, specific video. But Cain, he was another one that was kind of cool. However, I really didn't like vibe with him that much, just saying off the rip. So I really want to see how this battle will come to be, because it was like, ensuing that Abel doesn't even want to hear about Cain, or like it would just get him infuriated to hear anything about his brother. And let's just see what will happen, because I just wanted to find out more, and we didn't get too much. We got more in the Cain episode, but not a lot in the Abel one. So hopefully they do like a quick synopsis about their abilities and then straight to battle. Like, I hope it's a battle, man. I really want to see this. It'll be fun. So if you guys are excited for this video and this reaction, please remember to smash that like button, guys and girls. It takes less than a second if you enjoyed the content. And also, if you're not already part of the family, smash the sub button as well too. If you enjoy SCP content, you guys like my reactions, it's the best place to be to get those doses of SCP heat. I'm telling you, it won't be a wrong decision. Smash the sub button, come along for the ride. We're going full throttle. We don't slow down. It's gonna be a great time. Let's get it together. So with all out the way, I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get this show started. Alrighty, SCP-073 and 076, Cain versus Abel, SCP animation. Remember, shout out to SCP Explained Story and Animation. They're the one bringing this to us. Catch it in the description. So that being said, let's get it.
Corpses littered the facility, around 20 in total. Their massacre had unfolded in a matter of seconds, despite their advanced armor and heavy weaponry. Their killer, wielding an ancient sword he'd somehow pulled from thin air, looked upon them with disdain. Weak, unworthy opponents. He breathed heavily. His torso was covered with bullet wounds, and many had punctured his lungs.
So that's Abel.
It was enough to kill a normal man 10 times over, but not him. He was the ultimate warrior, the perfect killing machine.
It's definitely Abel.
He would need to seek out an enemy more fitting for his legendary combat skills. He fled from the chamber into a connecting hallway, where a giant metal door slammed shut behind him. At the other end of a hall, another door did the same. He laughed at the thought of someone thinking he could be trapped so easily and charged towards it. But then, large valves began to open all around him.
Uh-oh, seems like a trap.
Freezing seawater began pouring in, filling up the chamber and submerging him before he could reach the door. The warrior fought for breath, and he held it far longer than any mortal man could, especially considering the state of his lungs.
He can't do it forever, though.
Water always wins. He soon gave his last gasp and floated, lifeless in the hallway.
Damn, it's funny that the bubbles are coming out of the holes in his chest. I just thought that was pretty funny.
And soon after, his body turned to dust and disappeared in the briny water. But he would be back. He'd always be back.
Yep.
His brother was a different story. Tall and handsome, with a strange Sumerian rune tattooed on his forehead.
Oh, also, I want to talk about something that we saw in Cain's situation in his own video. In his video, Abel died, and we didn't know like what happened. Like, he was grown as the same speed as a regular human, and when he died, he didn't go back to like SCP 076 -1, that tomb. He didn't go back there, so they labeled him deceased. So I hope we get a little bit of like what happened there, because it happened right when he met with Cain, and he dealt with what the feud that they had with each other, but they didn't really deal with it because he lost his memory. So like, I hope they talk about that. Maybe, I doubt it, but that would be kind of cool, because I'm interested in seeing like what caused him to die, because he didn't have that hatred towards his brother, so his soul could finally rest in peace. Was that the case? That would be kind of cool, but just had to throw that out there.
He was practically a pacifist and spent most of his days reading, conversing with the staff, and wandering the facility of his own accord. Upon hearing of the latest incident at the facility, he gave a sigh. He knew on some level that all of this was his fault.
Yep.
It'd been centuries, millennia even. But was it too late to make things right? 6
Maybe.
days later, the two are standing face to face. This meeting had been a long time coming, but it was always destined to end in blood and pain. The man with the runic tattoo was unarmed. The only thing he carried was his regrets. The warrior,
Damn.
eyes full of burning fury, drew his sword. And not long after, a head hit the floor. Who are these two strange men? And
Just like that. Was it Cain's head? Well, I always thought like he might not fight Abel because he feels sorry for his brother, killing him because he was feeling sorry in his own episode. But dang, he just brought his regrets with him. That's crazy.
And what is the significance of this fatal meeting? In our own universe, these two may never meet again. But that doesn't mean there isn't a universe out there where they will. And it is that universe where today's tale springs from. The story between these two began a long, long time ago.
That's what I wanted.
When they were both set on a course of destruction. But to learn how these two finally met once again, we only need to go back a few days. While they seem more human than a lot of beings under the SCP Foundation's watchful eyes, there's no doubt that these two are anomalous. They're known as SCP-073 and SCP-076.
Yep.
But better known as Cain and Abel. From the name alone, most people with a basic knowledge of the Bible could tell that these two have a connection, but the particulars were largely a mystery to the Foundation. They wanted to know how much of the story was actually true. SCP researchers approached SCP-073, aka Cain, and asked if he'd be interested in reuniting with his brother one last time. It took Cain 3 days to answer. Yes, but on one condition.
He was going through it.
He was the only person who could abort the mission. The Foundation mulled over this requirement for 3 days.
Who's that
the
dude?
O5 Council finally made a decision. Cross-testing approved. These two brothers, separated by millennia, would finally meet again. And the SCP Foundation would get to watch what happened when they did. Of course, for safety reasons, the cross-test would take place in 076's containment facility, a bedrock chamber 200 meters beneath the sea. That would be the closest thing to safe this fateful meeting could ever be.
Let's get it.
Safe was really a relative term when it came to SCP-076. His escape attempts were as frequent and unpredictable as they were deadly, and everyone who'd ever worked with him knew exactly why. To the untrained eye, it would seem strange to create such a complex facility for a 3-meter squared stone cube, known as SCP-076-01. But the cube isn't what's being locked up here. The real danger comes from the corpse stored inside, known as SCP-076-02,
Abel.
but better known as Abel. He's a lean, olive-skinned man who appears to be in his late 20s. But his most distinct physical feature is the fact he's covered in an elaborate network of arcane and occult tattoos,
which is cool,
largely of scowling demonic faces.
And the other animation, I forgot who did it. I think it was Rubber or Dr. Bob, the one that I reacted to. I think it was the Rubber. The tribal designs, or like the designs on Abel, were so sick. Like, I liked his design a lot.
Similar to those found on members of the Yakuza. Whenever Abel's corpse reanimates, as it does at random intervals, everyone in his vicinity is in terrible danger. He's capable of pulling bladed weapons out of miniature dimensional rifts that appear around him.
Crazy.
He does this so quickly that it seems as though the weapons are simply materializing in his hands. Despite the increasingly complex efforts to contain him, Abel has been able to breach containment and go on brutal rampages multiple times, killing scores of Foundation personnel in the process.
He's the one that killed the immortal SCP too. Dr. Bright. He was the one that killed him. So it was probably one of these rampages when he escaped and Dr. Bright was like right there and killed him, which is kind of crazy.
Abel possesses superhuman strength, speed, and durability. During prior containment breaches, he was able to shrug off rounds from 50 caliber machine guns. He's torn through reinforced steel doors.
Jeez.
He's even swatted bullets from both handguns and assault rifles.
Oh my God.
With a length of steel rebar. Only killing him can truly end one of these rampages, and the Foundation has had to go to terrifying lengths in order to achieve this during past containment breaches. He's been drowned, asphyxiated, crushed, burned to death with a thermite grenade directly inserted into his chest cavity, and even disintegrated by the activation of the facility's on-site nuclear war.
They dropped a nuke on him?
This may seem like overkill, but if Abel were ever to make his way into a major population center, the fatalities would be, well, of biblical proportions. Even death can't keep him down for long. His body will rapidly decompose and reappear intact within SCP-076-01.
Unless whatever
There's no
happened.
telling when he'll reawaken. and his
Cain's
periods of
episode.
inactivity can range from hours to years. Because of this, he must be constantly observed by guards highly proficient in close combat, and always ready to go toe-to-toe with perhaps the most dangerous melee combatant in history. He's such a proficient killer that there was once a project aimed at weaponizing Abel, but this turned out to be a disastrous failure for the Foundation.
Weapon X.
When they ran out of missions to give him, Abel's thirst for blood caused him to turn his blade on his allies with no remorse,
Dang.
hacking them up with the same ruthless abandon he gave his assigned enemies. Interestingly, Abel does seem to have a twisted sense of honor. He has respect for combatants capable of providing him with a real challenge.
Yep, I
and has
remember
even
that.
expressed concern for guards he considers to be respectable adversaries. But don't be fooled. There is no reasoning with Abel. Either you kill him or he kills you. And trust us, he's much better at it than you are. While he's often overshadowed by world-ending anomalies or more talkative mass killers like SCP-072, Abel is one of the most deadly creatures known to the Foundation. Abel's counterpart, 073, is an entirely different story.
Yep.
Despite his namesake being the first biblical murderer, this Cain is a far more enigmatic figure. A tall man in his early 30s appearing to be of Middle Eastern descent, he has two very notable physical characteristics: the untranslated Sumerian symbol tattooed on his forehead, and the fact that several of his body parts, namely his arms, legs, spinal cord, and shoulder blades, have been replaced by mysterious prosthetics of unknown origin.
That part's pretty weird.
Abel, Cain is polite, non-confrontational, articulate, and communicative. He's even allowed to wander the facility he's housed in freely, though with certain regulations.
Thank God.
Namely, that Cain is never permitted to come into contact with plant life or uncovered ground. This is because, in spite of the fact Cain doesn't appear to harbor any malicious intent, direct contact with him causes plants to wither and die.
Makes
and the
sense.
ground to become infertile. If Cain was ever introduced into a natural environment again, he could unwittingly cause an ecological catastrophe.
When are they going to fight, though? Yo, this is what I'm waiting for.
He could almost be as dangerous to large populations as Abel.
Like, we understand the backgrounds, but come on.
Is only one of his several anomalous qualities. Another is extraordinary mental capabilities and a near-perfect memory. His memory and ability to recall is so good that some Foundation personnel have suggested using Cain's mind as a kind of backup server for the Foundation's collective knowledge. But perhaps his most well-known anomalous trait is his ability to act as a kind of immortal human voodoo doll. That's right. Any damage inflicted on Cain causes no permanent injury to him and is reflected back on the perpetrator.
Damn.
While Cain has remarked on still being able to feel the pain of these assaults, he's functionally immortal. This damage-reflecting ability has even made performing certain kinds of tests impossible, as doctors attempting to draw blood from Cain have found that their sample was actually their own blood, and their skin exhibited the telltale bruising and puncture marks of blood testing.
Which is weird, though, because if that's the case, they should just make Cain draw his own blood. Because with that logic, it should be his own blood. Because no one else is drawing his blood but him. So there's nothing to, like, put the burden on or the damage on. It should be Cain. So I wonder if they did that or they figured that out, or they will talk about, like, if he does it, like, that will, like, fix the problem of him, like, putting other people in harm's way.
But of most interest to the Foundation right now was the fact that Cain has shown prior knowledge of Abel. However, he was cagey when questioned. He refused to add any additional information and commented that it would be best if he and Abel were never brought into contact. But what does never really mean when you live forever? Cain finally did agree to the test. And while nobody knew what caused Cain's change of heart,
let's get it.
The Foundation knew better than to push him and potentially get the entire mission scrapped. Cain was taken from his facility and transported to the access point of Abel's underwater prison. The experiment's design was simple. Cain would occupy a temporary residence in Abel's containment facility until he next reanimated, at which point the interaction between them would be closely observed. Perhaps it would take weeks, months, or even years before Abel once again awoke and left his cube.
Well, it better take as long as this video has left. That's what I'm saying, because, there's like a minute left. I want to see some action, bruh. Like, come on.
But when he did, Cain would be there. Thankfully, as Cain whispered soothing words into Abel's tomb, the resurrection took only minutes. If you were expecting a heartwarming reunion, think again.
Thank God.
Cain tried to apologize, but Abel immediately struck him with a decapitating blow, which, due to Cain's damage-reflecting properties, caused him to sever his own head instead.
Makes sense.
Cain remained at Abel's side as he regenerated, and as soon as Abel did
it
he
again.
immediately tried killing Cain again.
That's what I'm saying. His abilities are so hacked, bro. I wish they could have went around it some way. Or like I wish Abel could have done something like cut off your own head if you feel sorry. And like if he cuts off his own head, Cain's head should be the one falling off and not Abel's, because he is the one that's killing himself. But damn, I figured this outcome. It was like always in the back of my head, but it's so unfair. God, he's so broken.
On like this again and again and again. It was an arduous process, and eventually, even Abel began to tire of it. The duo fell into a tearful embrace. Abel asked his brother why he killed him so long ago.
Yeah.
And Cain apologized, saying it was the actions of a younger and more foolish man.
Stupid.
In that moment, the two finally reconciled, and having fulfilled their bargain with their creator, both finally crumbled into dust. Peace at last.
They both crumbled. Wow. That is weird that they didn't do that in the Cain episode. It showed that Abel was the one that was his agent and died, and Cain was still alive. But this now makes sense. Like they both, like there's nothing left for them to, you know, keep them up at night, per se. They could rest. Their souls could rest now because they dealt with the drama. But at least I'm glad they showed both of them die then. That's better.
We said, this didn't happen to the Cain and Abel of our universe.
Oh.
But when universes are more numerous than grains of sand in an endless desert, such a thing has indeed happened somewhere out there.
Yep.
Perhaps in a kinder universe than our own. We can only hope that Cain and Abel may someday get to meet and find the same resolution. But until then, these brothers will remain one of the most dangerous and fascinating duos in the Foundation's catalog.
Damn.
Now go check.
That was a good one, guys. It was a lot more information about them individually than like a fight, but it made sense because the fight shouldn't have took that long. Knowing how broken Cain is, and like with Abel's moveset, it's kind of obvious that Cain would win. That's why I figured in the beginning that Cain will win, and I just want to see how they'll go about it. So it's unique that they went about it this way, and like Abel just got bored and just asked him like, yo, why did he kill me? And after that, they both died. Like, I liked that part. They both was able to like rest in peace, and that was a way to kill them both. So I feel like to actually destroy them, it was like only they could destroy themselves per se. Like they're both like undestroyable. That's why you could drop nukes on Abel, he'll be fine, and you know you could try to cut off Cain's head, and the other person will get his head cut off. Like, it's kind of cool what they did there. It was like a greater power at B to control their own destiny, and it took them. So I liked it. It was a good one. It wasn't too crazy. Yeah, I just expected a little bit more, but it made sense. It made sense. So I'm happy with that. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this reaction, you guys enjoyed this animation, please remember to smash that like button. It will mean the world. It takes less than a second, guys. And also remember to smash the sub button as well too. Join the family. I make reactions like this daily, so you will always get that fix of SCP dummy dose of heat. So yeah. However, unfortunately, that concludes the show. But before you go, smash that notification button so you guys know exactly when I'm posting more heat. I'm telling you guys, I post multiple uploads a day sometimes, so don't miss out on one. So smash the notification button. And yeah, like always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. With